We have all seen these videos from the Ukrainian war where a bunch of dudes sit around a laptop, one of the dudes is fidgeting a control stick, then something flashes on the screen, and then all of the dudes yell, "Yeah! Yeah! Yeah!" I too shout like that sometimes in front of the screen, but in my case it's usually Call of Duty on the screen. I don't think these dudes are playing Call of Duty in the front lines. What is really going on here?
Plus.
This is Stugna. Well, Ukrainians pronounce their G's as so Stugna. Stugna is a Ukrainian-produced, remote-controlled anti-tank weapon system. Maximum range is 5 kilometers, making it one of the longest-ranged anti-tank missile systems in the world. For comparison, Javelin has a maximum range up to 4 kilometers. The shortest range is 100 meters. And you might be asking, why is it important to talk about the shortest range? I think we've all seen the video from Mariupol when the Russian tank was driving past on the street below and the Ukrainian fighter up on the apartment block shot down on it with an NLAW, but it shot too close, below the minimum range of an NLAW. The warhead did not explode, making no damage to the tank. Minimum range is important. Maximum armor penetration of the Stugna missile system is up to 1,100 millimeters, so it's more than enough to take out T-72s. The Russian T-80 has an armor up to 1,000 millimeters, so Stugna is good with that. And it usually fires tandem charged warheads, which means the missile has 2 or more stages of detonations. For example, it uses the first detonation to get through the armor and the second detonation inside the tank to destroy the interior and the crew. In this video we can see the whole mission of a Stugna crew. They start with picking their ambush location. We can see that they picked a higher bump of the ground and put the Stugna system behind the crest of the bump, so only the barrel is exposed. Even the rest of the tripod is hidden or camouflaged. The crew itself usually sits about 50 meters away in the relative safeness of some bushes or some ditches. Well, the cable is 50 meters long, so they cannot be further away. My friends, before we go on, I want to thank the Patreons. These are the people who support this channel month after month, and I think they deserve their names to be read out loud as an Estonian. Prepare yourself for some ear bleeding. Tarlene Harris, Takahara Tanaka. I think that's about the 3rd time I say that name. You've become a patron again and again, I see. That is clever. Diane Levis, Roman Solovic, Mikael Miranda, Trey Nevkerk, Mikael Bovers, APT, Neal Combies. All of the names you can consider butchered now. My friends, if you like this channel, the Patreon link is in the description below. If you become tier 10 or above, I'll be killing your name with my Estonian pronunciation. Thank you. Here you can see the weakness of the Stugna system. You have to laser guide it. If there is wind or any other vibrations or disturbances that vibrate the laser or set it off target, the missile will go haywire, it's gone. And in this case they actually have to shoot a second missile, possibly giving away their position. Also, there cannot be any obstacles in between the laser and the target. It has to be an empty field, empty ground. You cannot use this weapon in a dense forest. But as we see here, he says to reload the missile and they do it within seconds. So reloading this baby is very fast. It's a very fast firing weapon. Another positive thing about it is that it's dirt cheap. Compared to the Western anti-tank platforms, it really costs nothing. The whole missile system, the tripod, the barrel and the shot itself and the laser guidance system, everything together costs 20,000. Let's compare that to the system that the West has given Ukraine. For example, Javelin, the whole system costs about $200,000 to $250,000. That includes the shot and the weapon. Then we have the NLAW. The weapon and 1 round of ammunition compared about $40,000. Then we have Carl Gustav, the weapon and ammunition, about $23,000. And that doesn't have laser guidance. Of course, then we have AT4 and RPG, which are both below $2,000. They are very cheap. But the explosives are a lot weaker and they're not laser guided. Stugna is dirt cheap. And it's taking down Russian tanks that cost just below $1 million USD, so it gets a lot for its value. The Pentagon assesses that Russia has, right now, about 92 battalion tactical groups in Ukraine, actively fighting. Each battalion tactical group has about 600 to 800 men in it, That puts the Russian fighters in Ukraine roughly 75,000. Another news from Washington. The United States House of Representatives has just passed Lend-Lease program for Ukraine. It means faster and more sufficient supply of weapons to Ukraine from America. And connected to that, Joe Biden's administration has asked Congress for $33 billion to direct towards Ukraine, out of which $20 billion would go for lethal aid, ammunition and weapons. The United States is stepping up a hell lot of money. One of the presidential staff members of Zelensky has announced that Ukraine will be attacking targets in Russia, and they have the right to do so. United States and the United Kingdom have actually acknowledged the Ukrainian right to attack Russia. See, Russia thought that the Western powers would never allow their weapons to be used outside Ukraine, but they were wrong. Ukraine is stepping up now. The Secretary General of United Nations, Antonio Guterres, went to Kiev. Russia knew that he was coming, and at the same time he was in Kiev, Russian missiles landed in Kiev. I think that moment was the closest of the Western countries actively stepping into this war. Imagine the General Secretary of the UN gets killed by a Russian missile attack in Kiev. That's a reason enough. In this video you can see Russian trucks. They're filled with grain. Russia is stealing grain big time from Ukraine. At the start of war, Russia annexed 5 Ukrainian grain ships. Ukraine is the breadbasket of the whole Eurasian continent. Ukraine is the biggest producer. Russia flat out stole the grain in those 5 ships, including these 5 ships. That grain is by now in Russia. And they're continuing to do that. Now they're forcefully exporting grain from Ukraine with trucks. And that's not the first time they have done it. In 1932 to 33, Stalin, with his orders, created biggest famine in Europe. Up to 5 million Ukrainians starved to death within 2 years. Let's go back to the Stugna anti-tank missile system. In this video you can see the technique the Stugna operators use that makes it harder for the Russian tank crews to get the missile inbound alarm. The operators hover above the target with their crosshair, flying the missile high above the target and only lowering the crosshair at the very last moment so the laser would not connect to the tank, giving the crew no time to react. That is, if that specific tank even has a laser jamming device on it. Russians have laser jamming devices on their T-80 and T-90 tanks. They're called Stora-1. System was integrated onto T-80 and T-90 tanks in 1995. So no T-72s have that system. Definitely not all of the T-80s and T-90s have that system. Most of the Russian tanks in Ukraine are T-72s and T-80s. And with everything electronical on Russian tanks or in any tanks, for them to work, the tank needs to run, meaning it needs fuel. But with the Russian logistics, that is not guaranteed. Tank is standing around. They do that a lot in Ukraine. Not running its engines, usually the laser jammer is off, making it a perfect target for the Stugna crew. I'll end it with a treat. In this video you can see a Stugna crew operating a missile shooting down a Russian helicopter that is hovering above the forest. Hitting moving targets is very difficult, but you can do it with steady aim. So you Counter-Strike and Call of Duty addictive hooligans, practice your aim. You're gonna need it. It's like destroying a Lamborghini with a rock. The price comparison resembles that. Thank you for watching, my friends. Thank you for choosing a side in this information war. Think with your own head. Don't take any information you find anywhere for granted. Analyze it for yourself and then decide what do you believe. Until my next video, my friends, Slava Ukraini.